Hey guys, we are now on day 2 of chapter 10, and we're going to look at RCA and the changes that it brought to Bloomington, Indiana. And first of all, RCA stands for Radio Corporation of America. And the people of Bloomington in 1940 received wonderful news, and that was that RCA purchased one of their buildings, their factory buildings. And of course, when people hear that, they're thinking jobs. Jobs are coming our way. And one reporter called it one of the greatest forward advances in the history of the city. So jobs are definitely coming. Okay. So why were the people of Bloomington so excited? Well, first of all, they were hit very hard during the Great Depression, and the limestone and furniture factories, which were the essence of that community, really never recovered. Okay. Also, the workers that were going to work for RCA weren't going to be unionized. Why is that beneficial? Why would a company want workers that are not part of a union? I'm going to give you time to think here for a second. Okay, so we have to think about what a union does. A union fights for higher pay, it fights for more vacation, it fights for insurance that costs the company money. And if they're not unionized, how do you pay your worker? Do you pay them more or do you pay them less? You might pay them less, but you don't have to fight with the union. And so that took out a lot of struggles for RCA. It was a selling point. The other thing is that women could work for RCA. How do you pay a woman? You pay them less, right? Okay. And then Indiana also offered RCA a huge break in corporation taxes. Okay. So instead of a company having to pay, I don't know, let's throw an arbitrary number out of 30%, Indiana's going to say, we're going to lower your corporation tax down to 20%. Huge incentives for RCA to come to Indiana. Okay. You can pay women less. Our workers won't be unionized. Woo-woo. Low corporation tax. It's huge. Okay. So I thought this was interesting. Women were actually paid, I'm going to give you the amounts here, between 17.5 and 19.5 cents per hour. Or if they worked 40 hours a week, that would break down to $7 or $7.80 for a 40-hour work week. Now, granted, and kudos to RCA, this is the highest pay rate for women in the country. So I don't know, it's just crazy. But you know what? Changes from World War II allowed women to work, right? They fought for their rights there. To continue working in the factory and just not be home ironing shirts. Ugh, I hate ironing. And I don't iron. Okay, so in 1949, it looks like we need the letter T here, which I will fix. RCA rolls out the first television. That's a big deal. Look at that puppy. That is a nice TV. Soon afterwards, color will follow because we have black and white first. And then billboards, as you drove into town, proclaimed that travelers were entering, you ready for this? The color television capital of the world, Skaboom. Go Bloomington, go RCA. And at this point, they are hiring more than 12,000. Hoosiers were in 1961, and they've opened up plants in Marion and Monticello. So RCA is absolutely booming. Okay. Now, enter in globalization, right? And this word outsourcing. What do you think of when you hear outsourcing? Do you think of sending closing plants in America and sending them down to Mexico, overseas to China, because you can pay your workers less, right? That's outsourcing. And so that's going to enter into Bloomington in 1970, okay? And they're going to cut jobs. In 1975, they've eliminated, well, I say 1975 to 1982, they eliminated 3,500 positions in Bloomington. And one Bloomington worker commented that instead of laying everybody off at once, here's the quote, They just sort of snuck it in one line at a time. And so ultimately, what's RCA looking for? Why are they cutting jobs? They want a higher profit. And moving the plant overseas or down south beyond the border can allow for that. Okay. Unfortunately, in 1997, RCA ends up closing the Bloomington plant, and 1,100 workers are laid off, along with an additional 420 in Indianapolis are going to lose their jobs. Okay. Now, here's a really cool thing, is that despite all of this news that they were going to lose their jobs and the plants were going to close, the employees showed up for work the very next day and surpassed their quota. So they produced more than what was expected of them, even though they knew they were going to lose their jobs. One lady said this, let me see where it starts. It says, "We're paid for a day's work, and that's what we've always done. We all went in, started doing our jobs, and did it well." So that's pretty cool. You know, a Hoosier working mentality there. That's neat. But what ended up happening, and here's that word outsourcing, they ended up moving the factory production down to Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. And they found workers willing to work for a lower wage. And that's exactly what they did. More profit in RCA's pocket. Now, a lot of workers opted for early retirements and buyouts. Some decided to go back to school. Some decided to acquire new skills. And a lot went to work in the auto industry. And so they went to work for Subaru, Honda, Toyota, in places like Lafayette, Greensburg, and Princeton, Indiana. And that's where they ended up going just to continue to make money. Ooh, there's my car picture right there. Boom, Hondas. It's a pretty cool car. Now, in 1994, RCA is going to continue to downsize their Hoosier workforce, but they end up buying the naming rights to the Hoosier Dome in 1994. They bought the naming rights for $10 million. So you can see right there, it says RCA Dome. It was home to the Indianapolis Colts football team, and it seated about 58,000 people. But in 2008, you can see here in my image, the RCA Dome was imploded. You can watch a video on that. I've got it on my Sway if you want to watch the implosion. It took about 20 seconds, 875 explosive devices, and just took it down to a pile of rubble. The video is actually kind of cool. I just can't show it on my screen. It doesn't pick up really well. So now, excuse me, you can see the new stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium, there in the background. So they had that built before this was imploded. And part of me wants to say it's just now a parking lot. So crazy. Now, the other thing, though, before I get to this slide, is that even though, let me go back, this was imploded and gone, the city still owed $75 million in debt on the construction of the dome in 1984. So I just find that crazy. It's built in 1984, demolished in 2008, but yet the city still owed $75 million on that facility. So crazy. All right. And so ultimately, that's the story of Indiana's skyline, are these deserted factories. And it is because of outsourcing. I know the Mexico-United States border, there's maquiladoras, which are factories just lining that border. And the Mexican people are willing to work at a much lower wage than what U.S. workers are. Now, ultimately, you do get a cheaper product because of that. If we had to pay workers, minimum wage, the product price will go up. So I know that sounds harsh, but that's the true reality of it. And so you get here and you've got Who's this guy? Hope you've seen him before. Jesse Jackson. He's an activist, pastor, preacher. So this is in Anderson, Indiana, who suffered high unemployment rates due to the auto industry leaving. And they're kind of protesting it. And you can see in the background the sign that America works when Americans are working. UAW, there's our auto union symbol. But Americans want to work, and our country does work better when we're all working towards the same goal. And if that's success for our nation, then boom, we're all in. We just gotta have places to work. It'll be interesting to see how our economy comes out of this pandemic, that's for sure. It'll be really interesting. So, you guys, that's chapter 10. It was short and sweet. We got one more chapter left after this. We might go back and revisit some things during the World War II era, but I wanted to make sure I got all the lessons in for you. Again, holler at me if you have any questions. We'll probably do a combined test of chapter 10 and 11, much like we did with our last one. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. If you're watching this on Friday, that would make a whole lot more sense.